It was 1 in the morning when I heard the faintest knock on my door. At first I thought it was the wind, but then another knock, trembling, weak. My heart froze. At my age, silence is often a companion at night, so that sound felt like a cry. I hurried to the door, and when I opened it, my world shattered. There, on the cold porch, lay my daughter, my only girl. Her body collapsed, her face swollen. Her lips split open, bruises crawling across her arms like dark secrets. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked like glass. I dropped to my knees, cradling her head against my chest, whispering, "My child, my baby." My hands shook as I touched her skin, burning and trembling with pain. At 70, I thought I had seen it all. I had buried friends, fought battles in the line of duty as a police officer, and stood tall against criminals who thought they could break me. But nothing prepared me for the sight of my daughter. Broken at my doorstep, I dragged her inside, every bone in my body screaming with fear. I fetched water, pressed a cloth to her wounds, and begged her to tell me what had happened. For a moment, she stayed silent, her eyes swollen with tears. Then, through trembling lips, the truth spilled out. "It was him, Mama," she whispered. "He hit me." My blood turned to fire. Her husband, the man I had trusted to protect her, the man she had chosen, believing in his promises of love and family. I clenched my fists, my heart pounding in my ears. I demanded, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. Her next words pierced my soul. Because of her, his mistress, he said I was in his way, that I'm nothing to him now. I couldn't breathe. My chest ached with a mixture of fury and sorrow. Betrayal isn't new to I've seen men lie, cheat, destroy families in my years as an officer, but betrayal this close, against my daughter. It was like poison poured into my veins. I sat beside her, stroking her hair as she wept. Memories rushed through me, her first steps, the nights I stayed awake by her crib, the dreams I had for her. I had given her to him, thinking I was giving her a future. And now, here she was, trembling in my arms, because the man who vowed to cherish her had raised his hand instead. As the night dragged on, I called the doctor quietly, ensuring she was treated without alarming the neighbors. But inside me, another call had been made, a call to my old self. The woman who carried a badge not as a piece of metal, but as a promise. That night, as I watched my daughter sleep fitfully on the couch, I made a vow. Not as an officer, not as a citizen, but as her mother. I would not rest, I would not forgive, and I would not stop until justice was served, no matter the cost. When the morning light broke through the curtains, I sat in silence, watching my daughter breathe. Her face was still swollen, her arm wrapped in bandages, her spirit crushed. She looked like a child again, lost, clinging to me as though I were the only thing left in the world that hadn't betrayed her. I brewed tea with shaking hands, but inside me there was no calm. I was a storm contained in an old woman's body. Every wrinkle on my face carried years of battles. Yet this was the hardest one because it was my own blood. She stirred, opening her bruised eyes, and when she saw me, she began to cry. I held her hand and whispered, "Tell me everything, my child. Don't carry this alone." Her words came like broken glass, cutting me with every truth. For months, he had been unfaithful. He had met another woman, younger, ruthless. He told my daughter she was in the way. He called her useless, a burden. And the night before, when she confronted him about the late night calls and the money missing from their joint account, he snapped. He struck her, again and again, until she ran, barefoot, bleeding, straight to the only place she knew she was safe, her mother's home. But that wasn't the end. She revealed something even darker. "Mama, he's trying to take everything. The house, the savings Papa left me. He forged papers. I think I found files hidden in his drawer. He's planning to make me sign them when I'm weak. Or worse." My heart stilled. Inheritance fraud. A plan to strip her of the legacy my late Husband had left behind the very foundation we had built for her future. And this monster, this man she called husband, wanted to steal it all. I felt guilt rise in my throat. I had been the one who blessed their marriage. I had seen warning signs, the arrogance in his eyes, the way he dismissed her opinions at family dinners, but I ignored them, telling myself he would mature. I had been wrong. Terribly wrong. I wiped her tears and cupped her face. You are not alone. He thinks he's clever, but he has forgotten who your mother is. For a moment, she looked confused. Then she remembered. I was not just a frail old woman sitting in a chair. I was a retired police officer. I had stared down criminals twice his size, and I had never lost a case when the truth was on my side. My daughter needed me not only as a mother, but as a fighter. That morning, while she rested, I pulled out an old wooden box from my cupboard. Inside were fragments of my past life, my bad, old notebooks, contacts long retired but not forgotten. My fingers brushed the badge, and I whispered to myself, this was never just metal. It was a vow. I started taking notes. Every bruise on her body was recorded. Every word she told me went into a file. I would build a case stronger than steel, one that no lawyer or corrupt man could twist. But even as I worked, my phone buzzed. A message flashed across the screen. Stay out of this, old woman, or you'll regret it. My blood went cold. He knew she was with me. He knew I would fight. But he didn't know me well enough. I stared at the message, then deleted it, my hand steady. He thought threats would break me. He had no idea he had awakened the wrong enemy. As the day ended, I kissed my daughter's forehead and whispered, rest now. Tomorrow, the war begins. That night, I barely slept. My daughter's shallow breathing echoed through the house, every whimper pulling at my soul. I sat in the dark with my notebook open, my old police instincts sharpening. I was 70, yes, but my mind was still sharp, and my spirit had never been stronger. He thought age made me weak. He was wrong. At dawn, I began my work. I photographed every bruise, every cut, every injury on my daughter's body. Each picture was proof, each mark a testimony of the horror she endured. Then I asked her to recall every detail she could, the dates, the arguments, the hidden files she found. Tears ran down her face as she spoke, but I told her, every truth you share is a weapon, my child. We will use his own cruelty against him. While she rested, I slipped out quietly, heading to the city. I still had old friends in the force, retired detectives, forensic experts who owed me favors. Over coffee, I told them enough to spark their interest, but not everything. Trust is a fragile thing, and betrayal hides in many faces. I had learned that long ago, but I didn't stop there. I went to his workplace, pretending to be a frail old woman just visiting. I asked questions softly, listened more than I spoke. And slowly, pieces began to fit together. He wasn't just unfaithful, he was reckless. He had been withdrawing money in secret, selling assets in his wife's name, hiding everything under the name of his mistress. The betrayal ran deeper than I had feared. When I returned home that evening, my daughter was awake, her face pale but her eyes sharper. Mama, she whispered, I'm scared. What if he comes here? What if he takes me away? I held her trembling hands in mine. Let him try. He has no idea the storm he has called upon himself. But deep inside, I knew the danger was real. And it came faster than I expected. 2 nights later, as I was locking the front door, I heard footsteps. A shadow lingered near the gate. I grabbed the heavy flashlight from the table and stepped outside. There, under the dim streetlight, stood a man I didn't recognize. His voice was low, threatening. Old woman, he said, forget what you're doing. Hand her over. Stop digging, or you'll regret it. He walked away before I could answer, but I didn't need to. My silence was louder than words. They were trying to scare me into surrender, but fear had long left me. I had faced murderers, thieves, and liars who thought they could silence the truth. and I had beaten them all. Inside, my daughter was trembling. Having overheard, I hugged her tightly and whispered, "Listen to me. You are my blood. No one will touch you while I breathe." That night, I sat with my badge in my hand, staring at it. My reflection in its dull surface showed an old woman with tired eyes, but beneath those eyes burned the fire of a warrior. I had given my youth to justice, and I would give my old age to it as well. This was no longer just about a cheating husband. It was about a man who thought he could use power, money, and violence to destroy my child. He thought he was untouchable. But he had forgotten one truth. A mother's love is the most dangerous weapon of all, and I was about to prove it. The days that followed felt like walking on shattered glass. My daughter clung to me, still broken in body. But a spark of hope began to return to her eyes as she watched me move with purpose. I was no longer just her mother. I had become her shield, her sword, her voice. I spent hours piecing together the evidence, photographs of her bruises, bank records I obtained through quiet favors, secret recordings of phone calls between him and his mistress. Every line, every signature, every ugly word spoken was stitched together into a net he would never escape. Finally, the day came. Courtrooms had never intimidated me, not even when I was younger. But that morning, at 70, my heart pounded harder than ever before. Not because of fear, but because of love. This wasn't about a case. This was about my child. We entered the courtroom together. My daughter's hands shook as she clutched mine, but I squeezed back firmly. Across the room sat her husband, his face smug, his mistress whispering at his side. He believed he still had power. He believed money could twist the truth. But truth, when armed with a mother's determination, is unstoppable. One by one, I presented the evidence. Photos of her injuries, financial statements showing stolen assets, recordings where he called my daughter worthless, boasting that soon everything she owned would be his. Gasps filled the room. Even the judge's eyes darkened at the cruelty laid bare. Her husband's confidence cracked. He shouted, denied, pointed at my daughter as though she were the liar. But when the mistress was called to the stand, everything collapsed. Under pressure, she broke, admitting he had promised her my daughter's inheritance, that they had plotted together to take everything. In that moment, his mask fell away. He was no husband, no provider, no man. He was nothing but a coward who preyed on the gentle. My daughter wept silently beside me. For the first time in years, I saw her shoulders lift, as though a mountain had been lifted off her. The verdict came swift and sharp. Guilty of assault. Guilty of fraud. Guilty of conspiracy. He was led away in handcuffs, his mistress with him, their heads bowed in shame. As the gavel struck, my daughter gripped my hand and whispered through her tears, "Mama, you saved me." But I shook my head. "No, my child. You saved yourself the moment you walked through my door that night. You chose to fight. I just stood beside you." Outside the courthouse, the air smelled different, clean, free. My daughter leaned against me, fragile but alive. And I realized something. My badge may have grown old and dusty, but my oath had never expired. Not the oath to justice, and certainly not the oath of a mother. That night, as we returned home, she asked me, "Mama, aren't you tired of fighting?" I smiled, though tears filled my eyes. My body is tired, yes, but my heart, it will never stop fighting for you. A mother's love doesn't grow old. It grows stronger with every scar. He thought he had destroyed us. He thought betrayal and violence would silence us. But in the end, he learned the one truth every coward forgets. When you hurt a mother's child, you awaken a force more powerful than any weapon, more relentless than any law, and more eternal than fear. I am 70 years old. I am her mother, and I will fight until my last breath.